This tip is focused on how presentation slides or other visual materials are used during a presentation. These two things, making use of relevant images and limiting the use of text, go hand in hand, as we will see. Let's get into the details and some illustrations as to why we want to be using relevant images and limited text in our slides. If I present a slide like this and try to talk to you at the same time, you are going to really struggle to focus on both, right? In fact, you may miss both the text on the slide and the words I say because the two interfere with each other. If I instead show you a figure like this while I explain how the analogy of an iceberg highlights the differences between what we refer to as surface, deep, and strategic learning, what you see is likely going to facilitate understanding of what I am saying. So, with your presentation visuals, assuming you are speaking as you display them to students, aim for as little text as possible and to include a relevant image that supports your main idea and what you are saying. This particular image is one that I like to use in my presentations when referring to people's networks of background knowledge. It represents connected information in the brain. I like to reuse it when I refer back to this concept to help learners recall the information that went with it before. And something referred to as dual coding theory helps to explain why we need more images and less text in our presentations. The idea is that people have two channels in which they can take in information and think about it: an auditory channel and a visual channel. People will actually better remember something if it is presented in both channels. So that is one reason it is helpful when presenting to students to combine relevant images with what you are saying. However, it gets tricky with text, language that is presented visually that students have to read. The problem is that reading requires both channels, both the visual channel for seeing the words and the auditory channel for internally verbalizing the words. For that reason, students can't read and listen to us at the same time. And I do want to make clear that it's not that all text is bad, it just has to be very limited. There are times when visually displaying text is advantageous. What you are seeing here is a slide from a different active teaching tip in which I talk about this cat's unusual name, and considering it is quite unusual and that precisely what his name is relevant to the story I tell about him, it helps for everyone to be able to visually see what the name looks like and how it is spelled, even if it's just for folks to confirm what they thought they heard. It's helpful information for this particular text to be displayed visually, and it can be that way with a lot of key terms that you teach. It can also be helpful at times to provide a concise definition along with the term in case students miss how you define it the first time. However, I really want to emphasize concise because the longer the definition or bulleted point, whatever the text, the more students are going to miss of what you say. They can't split their attention between what they are reading and what you are saying. It's only one or the other. Another useful use of text is what is often referred to as a signpost. Signposts and structures are just elements of a presentation that indicate to learners the logical structure of the presentation and also where they are at in that structure. An agenda presented at the beginning of a presentation, for example, would be a way to indicate its logical structure. Were this short video part of a larger presentation, this little signpost would help to indicate where in the presentation we are. Okay, since it is usually assumed that we are going to talk when we are presenting, that means the visuals we present should make use of not text, but rather relevant images. And relevant is an important qualifier here. We want to avoid irrelevant images. Irrelevant images will only distract and increase cognitive load, which is basically the load or amount of information the mind is holding onto at any one time. And the load that the mind can hold onto at any one time is limited, so we don't want them. Let's say I'm giving a lesson about our solar system and how the planets orbit the sun. This would be a helpful image for students to see as I talk about how the planets orbit the sun. What do you think about this image? It's about the sun, right? It would actually be better for me to use no image at all. And as I mentioned before, I particularly like reusing images from earlier in the lesson or even earlier in the term when I want to remind students of past concepts. It is a powerful way to help students make connections between what they are currently learning and what they have learned earlier in the course. Since in my presentations I often refer to people's networks of background knowledge, this image is one that I tend to reuse quite a bit in hopes of it helping recall of the information that went with it previously. Let's briefly review 3 ideas mentioned for implementing this tip in the classroom. Display as little text as is necessary when also speaking to students or learners, because students can't pay attention to both. Helpful text to display are things like terms, concise definitions, and elements like signposts. Do be sure to make use of relevant images. Dual coding theory suggests that learners can concurrently take in information both through what they hear and what they see, so long as it isn't text. So instructors should supplement what they are saying with supporting images. However, images that don't quite represent the message being spoken will interfere with the message, and it is better to have no image at all if the instructor can't find one that supports the message. And instructors should reuse images that have previously represented given concepts when those concepts are revisited. This helps students to bring that concept and its related information to mind.